Hello everyone and welcome. So today I'm going to teach you how to make a scrolling background using Python and Pygame. So just as a little demonstration, I'm going to run this code right here and you can see that there's a background image. It is moving to the left and so it seems that it's just an infinite scrolling background image. Now this is not my image. I just downloaded it from the internet, so you can just do the same. Okay, so before I get into the code, I'm going to open the whiteboard so that I can explain the mechanism behind this. So you have your game window, right? And inside of here, we're going to draw two images. One completely inside of my game window and one completely outside of the game window. These are two identical images. And then we're going to move them both to the left, right? So that it appears that the background is scrolling. Now, there's going to be a moment where, let me just delete this. There's going to be a moment where the second image is going to be completely inside of my game window, and my first image is going to be drawn outside of my game window. Now, when that happens, I want to stop drawing my first image on the side and redraw it on the other side so that it appears that my background is scrolling infinitely. Okay, so let's go into the code. What I've done here is just the basic stuff: imported Pygame, initialized it, created my game window, created my caption, and then my main loop. I've set a time delay inside of here because when your computer runs your code, it just runs it at as fast as it can. So you have to add a time delay. This is in milliseconds, so 60 milliseconds. And then for event, in every event possible in Pygame, if the type of that event equals pygame.quit, so you closing the window and quitting your game, then run is going to equal false, and your window is going to close. Okay, so let's get into that scrolling background image. So the first thing is to load your image. So I'm going to create a variable called bg, stands for background, and then I'm going to write pygame.image.load. This is going to load your image and then store it in this variable. So inside of here, I'm going to put the name of my background image. It's going to be game background 1.png. Now make sure to save this image in the same directory as your Python script. If you save it in a different folder, then you have to write the name of that folder and then a slash before the name of that image. So imagine that you stored it in the images folder. You would write images and then slash and then the name of the image. Okay, now, so this is the image. Let me just show you. This is the image. Now, as you can see, this image is really big, and I want it to be the same dimensions as my game window. So I have to transform its dimensions. So to do that, I'm going to create another variable called bg2, which is going to equal pygame dot transform dot scale, like that. And then inside of here, I'm going to write the name of my image, the one I want to change the dimensions of, and then the new dimensions, which are going to be the dimensions of my game window. So 1000 by 650 pixels. Okay, so I got my image stored with the right dimensions in this variable. I'm just going to create another variable called position, which is going to equal 0. Don't worry about this yet. I'll explain it later. Okay, so now I'm going to create a function called background. And inside of here, I'm going to code everything regarding my scrolling background. And then in the end, I'm going to call this function inside of my main loop. Okay, so the first thing to do is to write global position. This is because since I've defined position outside of my function, it is outside of the scope of this function. And so if you're not familiar with this, this just basically means that I can use position inside of my function. Now, there are two ways to go about the scrolling background. The first way is to just split two images and change their positions, and the other one is using a for loop and the range function. So first, I'm just going to fill my window with black. If you're not familiar with this, this is RGB. If you don't know what that is, it's just a color system, and this represents black, so 000 is black. And then I'm going to blit two images onto my screen. Blit is just drawing the images. Dot blit. So the split method takes two arguments. First, the name of the image I want to draw, and then the position I'm going to draw it at. So the first background image is going to be drawn at the position 0, 0. Now, position in the beginning is going to be 0, so I can just write position and then 0, right? Because position is going to be 0. And then I'm going to change position, so I'm going to make position smaller so that this is actually drawing the image over and over, but more to the left every time. So I'm going to write position minus equals 5. So position is going to decrease, and so the x coordinates of my image are also going to decrease, and so the image is going to move to the left. And then the second image is going to be drawn at the end of the first image, so at the width of the first image, which is going to be 1,000. Now I could write 1,000, or I could write bg2 dot get width. So this is going to be the width of my first image, plus plus position, which in the beginning is going to be 0, and then 0. The y coordinates aren't going to change. And so the second image is going to be first drawn at the position of the width of my first image. So at the end of my first image, right beside my first image, and then position is going to decrease. Okay, so just so you see what happens, I'm going to call this function inside of my main loop, and I'm going to run the code. So this is what happens, right? It looks pretty cool. It looks decent. But now let's let it run a little bit more so that you see what happens. So this is the end of the first image. This is the second image. And when it gets here to the end, let's see. You can see that it just turns black. This is because position is going to continuously decrease, right? But it gets to a point, let me open my whiteboard again. So it gets to a point where position is so small that both my images are going to be drawn outside of my game window, right? And when that happens, I want to reset position. So when the absolute, let me just close this. If the absolute value of position, keep in mind that position is going to be a negative number because it starts at 0 and then it decreases. So if the absolute value of position is greater than the width of my background image, so background image dot get width, like that, then I want to reset position. So position is going to equal 0. So what is this? So when the absolute value of position is greater than my width, then this here is going to be twice my width. And so the second background image is going to be drawn completely outside of my game window. And when that happens, I want to reset position so that it just keeps being drawn inside of my game window. So now if I run this code, you can see that everything is okay. So this is the first image. This is the first image, this is the second image, and now when it gets to the end, let's just wait a little bit. This takes a while. Okay, there you have it. When it gets to the end, you can see that there's no longer black on the side of the screen. Instead, there's just another image. Now, there is another way to do this. Instead of splitting two images, I can use a for loop and a range function. So let me comment this out. Okay, so now I'm going to write for num in range 0, 2. Now remember that in this function range, the beginning is inclusive, so it's going to start at number 0, and the ending is exclusive, so it's going to end at 1. So this is only going to englobe the numbers 0 and 1. And now I'm going to write window dot split, and then inside of here the name of my background image, and then the coordinates. Now the y coordinate isn't going to change, it's always going to be 0. The x coordinate is what's going to change. So I'm going to write the width of my background image, so bg.get width, width like that, times num plus position. Okay, so number in the beginning is going to be 0, right? Times the width of my background image is going to be 0, and then position in the beginning is also going to be 0. So the first image is going to be drawn at the position 0, 0. the second image is going to be drawn at the position of the width of my first image. So this is going to be the width of my image times num, which in this case is going to be 1 because it is the second number in this range, plus position, which is also going to be 0 in the beginning. So this is going to be the width of my second image. Of my first image. So notice that this for loop automatically blits both the images because this num is going to change, and now position is going to change. So the images are going to move to the left, and if the absolute value of position is greater than the width of my background image, I still want position to reset. Now, if I run this code, you can see that everything runs smoothly, so everything is normal. It works just the same. So just a last remark, if you wanted the width of your background image to be smaller, you would actually need more images to fill up your whole game window. So for example, if you wanted your background image to have a width of 200, you would need 5 background images to fill up your whole game window. And so you would have to put a 6 in here. And so to run this, if I run this code, this is what it would look like. So it looked kind of glitched, um, but just a little tip. Um, okay, so that's it for the video. I hope it was easy to understand. If it helped you, if it was useful for you, please like, and if you want more content like this and support the channel, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.